Good night. I said to myself, I hope this mic is working. Hi, good night. Welcome back to the Life Income Lab Q&A. This is week 2, and this is where we break down real business. So the questions I've been collecting from real people here in Barbados and across the Caribbean. This is about, business, digital income, payment methods, how to get started in business, the best strategies that work for where we are, this landscape in the Caribbean. So, for those who are new, I'm Terry Olori. And this week, you should be seeing my name and everything up on screen. I got some stuff sorted. I work primarily in the online space, dealing with helping people and businesses with their digital setups. So, all relating to business and the right tools, AI automation, so solutions with booking calendars, booking workflows, everything to make your life and business simpler and more automated and give you back time. I was trying to wait until a couple people logged on, but I'll just crack on with things based on the number of topics I have to get through. Hope I don't get feedback. Okay, so tonight we are continuing with some questions that I didn't get to get to last week during that first live, as well as some new ones. But funny enough, every time I do outreach, every couple days, I get the same questions or themes coming into me. That is about investment options, how to get started in business in Barbados altogether, capital, how to get found online, how to run ads, stuff like that. So I'll try to tackle pretty much as I can this week, similar to last week. So I got one question from this guy who has a valet, so an auto, not dealership. What's the word? Car wash business or car cleaning business. But like I said, valet, and he wanted to know if someone lands on your pick. No, wrong thing. He basically wanted to know how to get more visibility, how to be easily found online, and I mean, as opposed to running ads. He didn't say that part specifically, but some other people did. So I'll just lump them all in there. And I often tell people many businesses are invisible online in the first place, and that's problem one. So, how do you get visible online? Well, all of these social media platforms, majority of them starts off free. You can capitalize on that. And I know people say that if something is free, you are the product. That can be true. It's often true. But it doesn't mean it can't be a win-win situation. So you can still very well capitalize off of these free marketing channels. And when you do sign up for them, it's then the next step to utilize them in the right way. So I went back to his chat and I asked him, well, I told him, hey, I just did a quick scan and audit of your profile. Would you like some advice even in advance of the live session? And he said yes, thankfully. And what I then told him from even a quick couple minute scan of his Instagram profile was that, well, first of all, I asked him, okay, is your auto valet a mobile one? Meaning, do you go to people? And he said, yes. Now, that wasn't surprising to me, but I had to surmise that on my own from browsing through his profile, like literally scrolling. Because what I quickly noticed was that the photos which he has up, which are good quality, definitely good enough for Instagram and showcasing his work, they most of them had a different background, meaning a different house in the background behind that vehicle. What that quickly told me is that okay, it's probably a mobile car wash. So I then told him when he confirmed that that was true. I said, okay, well, that's written nowhere in your name, your bio, like nothing. And that again it helps to kill the visibility, because when somebody is searching for a mobile car valet or car wash, that's not going to show up. It may show up in some results here and there, but hardly. Next, I Googled his profile and only about three links showed up, all relating to Instagram. So that is a start. But in comparison, and it has nothing to do with boasting, trust me, because I I haven't even done the best job with my own profiles at times. But I often tell people, don't look at mine as the example. This is why I do the work for others when I get paid. But anyway, when I Googled myself, in comparison to the three links that showed up, all relating to his Instagram, and they weren't very explanatory in terms of his services, a bunch of different links showed up for me across different social profiles. So even on Twitter and platforms I'm not active on, that's because I set them up regardless, because that's where everybody is. People are on all these different social platforms. So people who sit and browse on Instagram, they're not going to magically find you somewhere else. Just as well, the people who are already somewhere else, they're not going to find you on Instagram. And the way how all of these algorithms work and the search engines work, like Google, they aggregate data. If there's none on you to collect, they can't put it in search results. You're invisible to them and you're invisible to anybody searching and looking. So I told him all of this in a much shorter format, and he said thanks and everything. I told him some specific changes he could make then and there. And I told him he could check out my profile as an example. So in my header line on my Instagram profile, I have Terry Lori, I have a space, a line, another space, business and income strategy. So at a glance, somebody has a general idea of what I do. Then in my bio, I max out the characters there as well, telling people, okay, who I help. So entrepreneurs, creatives, professionals with, I should remember my own stuff, huh? Not a good look. But basically with income streams. And then in my profile, well, don't look there for this, but what everybody should have in theirs is actually a pinned post, and you can do it carousel style, or you can do it all in one frame, just saying who you are, what you do, who it's for, and how to book, how to pay, where you're located. Those couple things would work wonders, because unlike me, how I went scrolling on his profile, most people are actually not going to go digging for the information. If they glance at your profile and it seems hard to navigate, or that you haven't thought through the client experience or the customer experience, they bounce on to the next person. And that alone is where a lot of people go wrong, which leads into another point. I said it last week, friction is not your friend. So, especially modern day, we're in 2026. People, we're still in, well, more and more in a microwave society. And if people can't get information like that, if people can't get fast food, all these things that are just constantly expanding, they move on to the next thing. People are impatient. Is it good? Arguably not, but it is where things are at. So at a glance, people need to be able to, like I said, deduce what this profile is about, what it is you have to offer, and if it's for them. And that needs to be stated clearly. You're allowed up to three pinned posts on Instagram. So you don't even have to pack all the information into one, but more often than not, all the information can fit neatly into one pinned post on your profile. And as I said again last week, friction is not your friend. All of these things, and I find most people don't seem to know it, they unknowingly create that friction on your Instagram profile, your other social media profiles, your website. All of this should just be basic information that's repeated. So when people land from whatever source, that information is readily and easily communicated to them. And just on a quick side note, today, a perfect example of the friction where it's not even necessary, especially modern days. A few days ago, sent a message to an insurance company here. This is relating to a life insurance policy. I had to fill out all of my contact information in a form. So my first and last name, my email address, what the subject was about. Did all of that, got a contact from one of their reps asking me for the same information again. So I'm like, okay, sure. And then they said they'd have to pass on my information to somebody who would help me with the query. And then that person called today and asked me, they didn't ask all the same questions, but they asked me to detail the problem again. So all of these things, already it was leaving a bad taste. And then the cherry on top was when I asked, after asking about certain options, when I asked about, okay, can I cancel this plan then? They said yes, as I suspected. But I said, okay, what are the options for canceling? Can I just do that from my online profile? They said no. I have to come in to their office, fill out two forms and some other thing, and then I can cancel. And knowing enough about insurance and these industries and how things work, I just chuckled and I said, well, I know it's not you personally, but if I just stop paying it, the plan will lapse and it will be canceled anyway, right? And the lady said, yes. So, I mean, yes, I do try to walk this straight and narrow, but when all these companies put all this friction in place, and granted, in that case, it's probably so the person doesn't leave, it's like what modern day. If I ever had to pick another insurance company to go with, it wouldn't be that one because I'm like, why would I take up myself, my gas, my time, my resources, drive to your office, fill out two forms plus some other thing when I could say just stop paying? So me being a little stickler for processes and procedures and having a little OCD, yes, part of me is inclined to do that correct process, so to speak, but it's just unnecessary friction. And that is what a lot of times we unknowingly do for our customers. And it's hard for them to want to do business again. And just a quick side note there too, it's harder to acquire a new customer than it is to retain an existing one. So people need to really put in the effort to sit and think through the client experience, the customer experience from start to finish. Think about the experiences you've had that you liked versus didn't like. What made it easy? Implement the better things with your business, leave out the rest. Um, in relation to that other point at the beginning, where the guy with the valet was asking about being more visible online, also got some more questions about how to get started altogether. And I think last week I tackled some, and maybe I'll do a dedicated session so I could go more in depth on how to get started because I recognize that is where a lot of people are feeling stuck. But just some quick notes on it today. I would say for somebody who is still in a job, so a traditional 9 to 5, give yourself at least 3 months to start learning a skill. And if you already have a skill, well, skip this advice. I'll deal with that in another session. But start learning a skill. You don't even have to master it. And most times you just have to be at least one step ahead of somebody else who's looking to learn that thing. So once you are that step ahead, you can start crafting your first skills based business from there, or service based business, which is the easiest thing to get started with. And a side note, you really don't have to be the world's expert. You just have to be one step ahead, as I said. And even if you are at ground zero, meaning now learning that skill or topic for yourself, a good tip is to take people along for the journey. So, all people want modern day is transparency, and that leads to trust more easily than anything else because people have been so burned by what is out there. So, they've bought a course that doesn't deliver. They spent their money on something and ended up with a broken promise. So, when people see people just being transparent and telling the truth, they more value that, and especially now in this day and age with AI and everything, they will value that as currency more and more. So if you just were to show up and say, hey, I want to start my online business and on whatever topic, and simply tell them, okay, I don't know anything yet. I'm now going to be learning. I'm going to be documenting it. That alone would capture people who are at that point, and even people who are supporting you that might not even be dealing with that same topic. So that is just a good tip there. Okay. We also had a question from Jamal, and he said, where my novel is concerned, it's 90% done. I know nothing about novel publishing. I just barge in and start writing one like a gully boy. But yeah, it's a different side of me. Barbados doesn't lend to money making as a creative. Okay. All right. So Jamal and anyone else dealing with that topic, what I would say there is that your market is bigger than Barbados. So oftentimes we forget that, especially modern day, our market is bigger than our immediate surroundings. The internet has opened up limitless access. Somebody would have to, God forbid, cut off the internet or power into these countries or something. But the internet is a whole gateway. You're no longer limited by geography, no longer limited by Barbados. And I am very much a probably quite the patriotic person. I love my country, but Barbados really does come with a lot of limitations if you're trying to do certain kinds of business or business on a whole. Um, Hence why I even started sessions like these so I could just share more of the information that's in my head to help other people. Because I had to learn a lot of it the long, hard way, figure out workarounds on my own and everything. So when I say Barbados is not your only market and your market is bigger than Barbados, what I mean is that there are no tools available to us that did not exist before or that were not accessible to us before. Amazon KDP, so Kindle Direct Publishing. Uh, Similar to last week, any tools or resources I mentioned, I will link them in the description below right after 7:30 when this live finishes, and I will, like I said, add the links there so you could check it out right after. But Amazon KDP, they've been around for a little while now. And again, I'm speaking from experience. I'm not just telling you researched information. I've published a book on Amazon. And the beauty of it is that you can do something called print on demand, POD. And what happens with print on demand, you don't need inventory, you don't need a publishing house anymore. Um, you don't need money up front to get started. What would happen is you join that program, and when somebody places an order to your book, um, then Amazon then prints it, or one of their, I don't want to say associates, what's it called? Affiliated companies or plants or whatever. So it's printed for you, everything is done for you, and it can go straight to that customer that bought it. And that's just one option if you're even going printed. You can sell ebook formats and you can upload them to the same Amazon KDP, but I would say KDP is not impossible to learn, but it's a little more advanced than some simpler options, which I'll even mention. So Gumroad is another great one and very beginner friendly. It's known for selling digital products. So you can take your ebook, and people sometimes get a little overwhelmed with some of these terms. But when you have an ebook, all that is a saved PDF. It doesn't have to be okay. Some platforms do require you to have other formats, but the simplest format you can start with is saving a document as a PDF, for example, and uploading it to Gumroad and selling it as a digital product. From there, you can, I think, encourage people to print it on their own. But most people read these things online now. They're on their devices, their mobile phones, their what they call tablets, their laptops. So printing is not even necessary, but there are options in every case, which is the entire point. And quick side note there, when it comes to print on demand, um, I mentioned the book side of it, but print on demand exists now for every kind of item you can imagine: shower curtains, regular curtains, sheets, bedspreads, comforters, pillowcases, mugs, cups, every kind of item you can think of. Print on demand exists for it. Some other platforms you can look into, well, this is people interested in other forms of print on demand. Those include things like Printify, Printful, not Bubble, Redbubble. That's a very beginner friendly one. Everything has its pros and cons, don't get me wrong. And also, let me back up a bit. At the beginning, I forgot to give my little disclaimer. I am not giving legal or financial advice. This live Q&A is just about answering real business questions I've gotten and sharing my real world experience and knowledge and everything. Yes, it's a lot of stuff I deal with day to day, week to week, so I do have the in-depth knowledge of it, but just understand in this 30-minute live, it's impossible to give all the context. So I'm not sending anyone to just sign up for platforms willy-nilly or anything, or just take, these specific actions. I'm just sharing the information about why is this, so you know that there are possibilities. So even in addition to Gumroad, there are other platforms like PayHip, there's Lemon Squeezy, and a lot of platforms out there to date still don't accept users from Barbados and the Caribbean region. So it you are more limited in that sense. But the point is, unlike years gone by, you're no longer completely out to sea or isolated in terms of the options. We also had another topic from. Sorry, in here is hot again. I had to close the window because the crickets outside and the noise was blowing into the mic too much. So I am struggling for this last 10 minutes. Um, okay, so the next topic, the theme is engagement is engineered. And that's because I got a note from someone. This was Kevin. He said, my challenge is within my charity organization. I won't say the name because they didn't ask permission, but he said the young people are not as engaged to try to do and learn new things. And it's frustrating because we have all of the resources there for them. So my main problem is community engagement. And I actually smiled when I saw that, not because I was happy at his dilemma or problem, but because I like problem solving. So when I see and hear problems, yeah, the nerd in me gets excited. So immediately I started to think, and just so we're clear, I don't have full context from him or the situation on that project, but I would be inclined to think that it's probably the common error I see these types of organizations making, where you go in because you see a problem and you see a need. That is great. I applaud that. Everyone applauds it. Where I think sometimes they fall down is, more often than not, when I've checked or even seen it for myself, um, the people who it's about are not involved. And most times, people, if they don't have ownership of something, they're less inclined to care. And that doesn't mean they have to be involved at every single step of the way in every single thing. But that is often how it goes. So engagement doesn't happen by accident. People tend to support what they help build, and the ownership then creates responsibility. And one of the other errors I've seen a lot of times in some of these more charity type organizations is going in, and I don't want to put it the wrong way, but doing maybe too much hand holding. So for example, you put yourself more in a savior role as opposed to, as I said, taking those people along for the journey and letting them have ownership of it. A good example I can think of is, oftentimes you would see over the years a company or government or charity organization make a donation to, like, say a school and or a club, and say, okay, well, we donated 20 tables and chairs to XYZ school, or a brand new hard court in this community. And then within like a week or a month, you pass by and the pavilion and the hard court has graffiti on it. And okay, chewing gum is stuck on the walls, under the benches, all of that. Yes, most times it might be the little children doing stuff, but any way you slice it across the age ranges, is often because people don't have ownership. And what do we mean by ownership? They didn't really have a part in it. They didn't have any blood, sweat, and tears. So yes, there's good intentions. You feel like you're doing a good thing or the right thing, and you are, well, a good thing. But in terms of the right path, if some of those people had to mix concrete, lay bricks, put down some of the same materials, and they had that level of ownership in it, I bet the same person would think twice about destroying it or watching other people destroy it. And I've seen that in practice, so I know it works. I'm not just talking. The same thing would happen even in simpler principles where, from primary school or secondary school, there would be that bad behaved child. And if the teacher had to leave, they would put them in charge sometimes. And I remember sometimes the rest of the class would be like, why the teacher left this person in charge? And oftentimes, those teachers were smart enough to see that when you give that type of person ownership, or certain people ownership, or people in general, give them ownership, it does change the mindset and outlook and everything. So I would say look at that angle, and also Well, who do you have driving certain programs? Is it people that these youth are finding relatable? Because sometimes we also have a lack of awareness in terms of who should be doing what. So if the program was your brainchild, you and a couple people, like I said, oftentimes the people who it's meant for are not in the rooms helping make decisions. I would say that's an oversight or error. But the next thing is who's communicating information to the target audience. Um, if I go and stand up, okay, I have some, this is a great example. I have some family in Orange Hill, St. James. I love them, they love me. But when I go up there, I don't pretend to be anything I'm not. I speak the same way. Sometimes more or less, I speak more or less Bajan dialect or standard English, but I don't pretend to be anything I'm not. I don't go up there, trying to act like I'm from a block. I'm not. I respect them and they respect me, but I don't pretend. Now, if I had to pitch a program to people on the block, I would be more inclined to carry somebody from the block to talk to people from the block, because while they can understand me, it would probably be they would probably be more invested if they hear it from somebody better communicating with them than I could. And that's not putting me down or anybody else down, but it's just a fact. More often than not, that's how it goes. We have a couple minutes left. So, the last thing I wanted to explain about is just the premise of front loading with value. And this comes from a couple questions I had where they do tie into people who've asked about how to get started and everything. And I think last week I covered starting with perhaps a service based business, but also reaching out to the people around you. And that means an action as simple as opening your phone, opening WhatsApp, and messaging friends or family, because that should be less intimidating to somebody now getting started, and just asking them questions. So ask them, okay, what is it you're struggling with right now? And I don't mean invasive type questions, but I mean in relation to whatever your topic of interest is, and then getting that level of feedback. And next thing I would say, just literally start helping people. And I do not preach anything that I haven't put into practice, or um, that I know, won't work for you. The principles don't change, they work for anybody. So by extension, when I say front loading with value, a lot of times when people are getting started, they're thinking money first. But if you think value first, then you won't have to think or worry about money, because that will follow, believe it or not. And I will have to get into things like market saturation in maybe the next session or something. But I've said it before, I'll say it again, market saturation is more of a myth, because yes, the market is saturated, but it's not with people who give a lot of high quality service or anything like that. Sometimes people are only going back because it's the only option. So if you were to turn up and give quality service and value and make yourself visible, like I said, 2026, you have to be online. Coincidentally, I deal with that stuff. So yes, you can book me, but I can't help everybody. So even in that sector, there's gaps for people who provide a good service and know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, won't screw you over or just take your money to make a quick dollar. Those kind of people are needed. And that is also why I believe in front loading with value. So I am not advising. I'm suggesting you do that, but I also do it myself. So as I said, I don't give any suggestions that I don't follow. So even in terms of how to front load and give value, that starts with, like I said, asking somebody a question. Sometimes we want to start by just talking and giving out responses, but ask questions is what I've even been doing with this Q&A. So every couple days, I just message some people, a handful of people, and say, "Hey, I'm doing this Q&A on Wednesdays now. What business questions do you have? If you're building something, you are somebody feel free to share it." It's as simple as that, and I get the questions coming in. From there, I'm getting information, collecting it. I can see that people, like I said, are asking the same questions over and over about how to get started, where and how to get funding, what business type to choose, what niche, all of that. And man, this half hour flies by. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Um, I can't go into detail, obviously, on every single thing or much at all, but just closing remarks, I suppose. Bottom line is you have to be easy to find. I use the example of that valet who don't have any online presence, and it's not expensive to correct that. Well, it's more expensive if you pay me to do it, but it does save you on cost in terms of doing it the wrong way and not making money anyway. But you can take some of these steps for free for yourself. Next, friction is not your friend. Think through your customer experience and think of what people want and need and don't like. As I said, have that pinned post on your profile that just says who you are, what you offer, what you sell, how to pay you, where you're located. Basics. People just need clarity and basics. Just put it in their faces. That part is not hard. You can do that. As I said before, your market is bigger than Barbados. So if you've been feeling like a big fish in a small pond, yes, you are. Barbados is a dot of a country, but you're no longer limited by that geography. You can reach globally. I do it, you can do it. And remember, engagement is engineered. So that was relating to the question about the charity and the youth not being involved. Get them to take ownership. Start by asking them questions, because you could sit all day in a boardroom trying to figure out why they're not engaging. Ask them. I flat out ask people questions. I've trained lots of teams, led lots of teams to victory, I might add. And I always go in and start by asking them questions. I talk to them. I find out what they have going on. I can make all my assumptions all day long, and more often than not, they are correct. However, that leads to arrogance. I don't go in thinking that way. Go and humble myself same way. And day one of any organization I am involved in is normally me just asking people questions, connecting with them, figuring out what they have going on. And last but not least, value builds leverage. So if you take one thing from tonight, just fix one friction point in your business or operations or your system and go from there. Next week, I should be getting into funding, how and where to get it, some investment options for Barbados, the Caribbean that you can actually get into. And because our stock market here is very much not like what you see on TV, of course, like Wolf of Wall Street and those kind of movies or in the US. And if you have any questions on those topics, send them to me. If you have business questions in general, still send them to me anyway. The best place to reach me is inside my free community, the Wealth Circle, which I host on a platform called School. So you can reach me there, is the best place. And that is it for tonight. So another half hour down, another week down. Thanks for those who joined and those who watch the replay. Thanks to you in advance.